Welcome to On Top of the Covers, a weekly podcast by Orlove, dedicated to all of you truly amazing human beings that tune in every single week to listen to us just talk about, talk with and about the creative process, talk with creative visionaries and entrepreneurs and artists, makers, disruptors in the world. We're constantly focusing on the culture of music, right? And how we're contributing to it, because really music is a commonality amongst all of us globally. And so we'll feature inspirational stories of people contributing to the culture of music, how they do it creatively and artistically and personally and professionally. And we'll also show you a lot of really unconventional ways and different paths to success, because as I always say, success is a very arbitrary word. It's really defined by you. And, we're really grateful to have the type of guests that we have that come on every single week. For those of you that are just tuning in, I'm Matt Gottesman. I'm your host, and I'm also the director of the Orlove brands. You guys can reach out to me at Matt Gottesman on Instagram. You guys know I answered each and every single DM, text, reply, response for like the last decade. Practically, we're going on, I think, 8 years at this point. And, there you can find out anything you want or ask me any questions. You can also reach out to us on @WeAreOrlove. And we've got another incredible guest. I have no doubt that this is going to go into amazing conversations, especially when I read his bio initially. I'm like, oh, okay, this is like a soul brother. Cool. We're going to be talking about all kinds of different stuff. And I've got Mikey Lion here. He's, the founder of Desert Hearts with a group of great people. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things. We're going to be diving into spirituality, overcoming our own resistance. Yes, that happens to all of us, believe it or not, no matter where you're at in the journey. We're going to dive into mental health and wellness. You guys know I'm very passionate about this, especially, in the arts and the creative visionary type people. Mental health and wellness is a very big topic, and we see all kinds of ways people express themselves in the art, in various different arts. And, a lot of times because there's an inner dialogue that's happening. There's our experiences that are happening, and we're wanting to relate to the world, right? I've expressed myself countless times to the rest of the world through what I'm going through, because people go, how are you in my head? And I'm like, well, I'm you, you're me. We're all souls having a human experience. So we're going to also be talking to him about, balancing life on the road, and his new album, For the Love, which just came out May 28th. And just a real quick background. He started out as a hip hop head. I feel like several of our guests have done so, bumping Wu-Tang records in his bedroom at age 13. And his love affair, though, with house music began at Coachella in 2006. And it, of course, came about with a little known band as Daft Punk. It flipped his world completely upside down, and he's been on this other path ever since. And after some experimentation and throwing parties and gigging, his life purpose became crystallized at 24 years old during a life-changing psychedelic experience. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. Spirit guides, which manifested in the trees, revealed the way of the universe's love, and that his life's purpose is to spread it far and wide. And we're going to also maybe be diving into this stuff if he's open to talking about that stuff. I love that stuff. But a few months later, in the fall of 2012, he teamed up with partners Marbs, Lee Reynolds, and his younger brother Porky to throw the very first Desert Hearts party. Many of you are very familiar with Desert Hearts parties. And the intention was to spread as much love and positive energy as possible, soundtrack to nonstop house and techno in the middle of the Mojave Desert. And the message of love must have resonated with all 200 attendees at the time, because 9 years later, Desert Hearts Festival is now a 5,000 person event that he'd put up against any party in the world as one of the best parties on earth, or the best party on earth. And then along the way, he also launched Desert Hearts Records in 2014, which he has since signed records from his friends, musical heroes, and other world-class dance artists from around the world. And marking the label's upcoming 100th release milestone in April 2021 that just passed is his debut album, For the Love, which we're also going to mention talk about. Man, you've done a lot. You're still going. You probably still feel like a baby in the bigger picture of life, though, right?
Yeah, I still feel like a baby. I feel still like I'm getting started, and I'm just really excited for the next things that are coming.
Yeah, I've found that, and we'll dive right in on some of the rapid fire questions, but I've found that people, after they've done a bunch of different things, it's sort of like, yeah, now that I've set things up, the journey really begins. It's like, now I'm really just the student more than ever. So, we do something a little bit differently on the show before we're diving into the background, and I really want people to hear about your story and how we got here to today. But we do 4 rapid fire questions, and we do them at the beginning of the show, just because we love to just be different. We do nothing the same. So, if you're ready, we're gonna jump right into them.
Let's do it.
All right. So, I always love posing this question: if all the music was wiped off the face of this earth, period, it's gone, there's Armageddon, I don't know, whatever reason, all the music is completely, wiped off. And you're allowed to save only 3 albums, and you can only listen to those 3 albums for the rest of your life. What would they be?
All right. So I got to go with Wu-Tang 36 Chambers.
Yep.
That's probably number 1. It's just kind of the album that got me into music in general. Modest Mouse, The Lonesome Crowded West. Huge Modest Mouse fan. And then I think I'll go with Daft Punk Homework as the 3rd.
It's not surprising to hear several similarities across all the guests. Wu-Tang has come up a few times. Daft Punk has come up a few times. You're the first with Modest Mouse, but I know quite a few would agree. Incredible. Question 2. And question 2, a lot of times relates to question 1. It can. But name an influential person, living or non-living. It could be any person throughout all of history, or living and even maybe related to one of your answers to question 1, that you can interact with for one night. Who would it be? Like, who would it be that you would want to sit and talk with for hours?
So mine does relate with question number 1. And I don't really have that many musical heroes in my life as far as people that I'm just completely in awe inspired of. But I got to go with the RZA, head of the Wu-Tang Clan, and just the absolute visionary for changing hip hop. And then he went into making music for film. And then while he was making music for film, he has studied under Quentin Tarantino how to make film. And he's just always ahead of the curve on everything. And I just completely idolize the RZA.
I think so many people thought he was just Wu-Tang, and they don't realize how multifaceted and multidimensional he is. And the fact that he's constantly putting himself in positions for learning and getting out in front of the things that he wants to do, and seeing things from a very visionary standpoint, like, oh no, here's what's next for me. Sometimes, not a lot of people can do that, So good choice. Good choice. All right, number 3. In your opinion, what's the best music-focused film for you of all time? Now, it can be like a documentary, a docuseries, fictitious movie. It doesn't have to be like real, but music was somewhere at the core of its, focus.
So all-time best music movie ever is Tenacious D, The Pick of Destiny. It's awesome. It's so fire. That movie is just everything to me. I still listen to it even just on Spotify. It's just the best all-time musical. It's so good.
Classic. Beautiful. That's awesome. And finally, what's an important book, podcast, or Audible or platform that's helped you navigate your creativity and passion? Something that's really helped you continuously push, your own boundaries, if you will.
So it's The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And that book is just phenomenal in outlining and explaining what the resistance is, how to overcome yourself. It's essentially a guidebook to beating yourself. And it's the best. I love it. It
is. It's a class. I've read it twice. And anybody listening, I highly recommend The War of Art, Stephen Pressfield. It's a journey for anybody here that wants to create. And I believe all people are here in some capacity to create, whether they accept that responsibility or not. So I urge everybody to take a listen or a read on that. So before we jump in, I think for context purposes, I would love for everybody to know a little bit more about your background. I mean, I know we have a lot of listeners that do know who you are, but I would love to them, kind of hear, how do we get here? And you can go as far back as you want, to your childhood. Some people have done the Big Bang Theory. I don't know. So I guess wherever you want. But how do we get, to this point where, you've got a new album out, you've got the festival, and you got the record label, all these things. But what led up to all of that? How did we get here?
Sure. So I run a record label, a festival, a huge art community by the name of Desert Hearts. And we started that about 9 years ago in 2012. And really, I started DJing when I was 13 years old, just total hip hop head. My mom and dad asked me if I wanted to play any instrument that I wanted to. They would buy it for me. And I came back to them just telling them, yeah, I want the Technic 1200s. and they're just like, absolutely not. That's not happening. But then I ended up saving up my money, all my birthday money and everything, bought these like two turntables and a mixer, and I was a scratch head. I was just in my bedroom every day scratching. And that was my life for 3 years or so in high school, until I literally, the very first time that I heard or experienced dance music, my buddy also gave me an ecstasy pill for my first time. I was 17 at Coachella, and it was literally the debut of the Daft Punk Pyramid. And
wow,
I just basically started at the top of the food chain for dance music. And at that point, I was just freaking out, right? And I'm just thinking to myself, fuck hip hop. This is what I need to be doing. That's what I want to do. And after that, I just started buying records of electronic music, house music, trance, basically anything I could get my hands on. And I started DJing, and I bought a sound system when I went to school in college, and I was kind of the only DJ at my college. And so I was just playing house parties, and I studied abroad in Barcelona for, I think, 4 months. And that was when I just had my mind blown. Went to Ibiza for the first time, went to Berlin for the first time, and just completely changed my life, right? One of those European, just eye openers. And I came back from that completely convinced that I was moving to Berlin once I graduated school. And when I graduated, I moved home to San Diego, and just kind of, biding time, and started a party called Jungle with Marbs, who's now one of my partners in Desert Hearts. And that kind of turned into a cool thing. And then I met my wife back then. And even when we first started dating, is like, we're a couple months into our relationship. I'm just like, well, like, don't get too attached because I'm moving to Berlin soon. But then we just kind of, at the time we started, I don't know, the club scene in San Diego was pretty lame. There wasn't much going on. And at the same time, we met one of our partners, Lee Reynolds, he's 20 years our senior, but he's just an absolute wild man, most interesting person on earth, basically. And he was throwing a party, and then our two parties merged together. And then we just wanted to just go do something completely out of the normal of throwing little club gigs, and like, let's go to the Mojave Desert, throw a Renegade. And, all this was predicated on this, let's create a party where the main mission is to spread as much love and positive energy as possible. And so we went out to the Mojave, got our asses kicked by the weather, but at the same time, it just, that first sunrise on Sunday morning, when we had beaten the weather, we'd overcome all this. There's only about 200 people there, but it was the one, probably most pinnacle moment of our life at that point. One of them for sure. And people around us were telling us that this party was going to be the next lightning in a bottle festival. And we're like, what are you talking about? I'm 23 years old. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. And just organically grew from there. The next party was 500 people. The next party was 900 people. And then we're like, oh shit, are we doing something here? I think we need to get some infrastructure under this. We don't know, like, I don't know. We just had no idea what we were doing. And we all just it just organically happened. And, our festival grew, and then we started touring. And then I started the record label in 2014. And then 100 releases later, here we are. It's my debut album. For the Love is what it's called. And just a million amazing moments and beautiful friends and community that's grown around this project. And it's unreal. I'm living my dream and getting to help people along the way.
First of all, I definitely understand how you felt when you went to Barcelona. So I went to Sevilla. That was mine for 6 months when I was in college. So I made my way up to Barcelona and Madrid, but Sevilla, and wow, like I was just like when you were saying, like I didn't think I was gonna come home. I was like, yeah, no. I remember calling family like, hey, like I don't think I'm coming home. they're like, no problem. You can do whatever you want. Like you just have to figure out how you're gonna, pay for it. I was like, that's a good call. I'm like, maybe I will figure it out.
Yeah.
So
I had a plan at one point when in the drawing board phases where I was gonna go stand outside of Burger King and sell California burritos.
There it is. Nice.
that was like my plan.
Love it. I love it. Yeah. I relate to it because it definitely does open your eyes to a whole other world, especially with music. I had been introduced slightly to dance music and EDM and electronic a year before moving there. And so when I was out there, I'm like, oh, these guys are on a whole other level, in Spain and in France and in Portugal and everywhere. Everywhere it was like, oh, this is wild, and all of Europe. So I related to that. And then, something else that you said too that I thought was really cool was that, as the festival was growing, like we had no idea what we're doing, but you at least, I love hearing that because I feel like everybody always thinks that they have to know what to do. And I always say, well, you'll know once you start doing it.
Learn by doing. I learn by doing is the best motto ever for jumping into anything. Because even when we started the record label, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And then I'm still learning stuff all the time, And I think that it's the best possible way to just immerse yourself into something. And even over the pandemic, we were streaming nonstop and crazy and never streamed before the pandemic. And then all of a sudden I think we're like the 5th biggest music channel on Twitch now.
It's incredible.
Yeah. And it completely saved our company because normally we fund our business through our festivals and we haven't been able to do that through the last 2 years. And we just pivoted onto streaming and not only did it save our business financially, but it gave a home to all of our community around the world to just be able to interact with us, interact with each other 5 nights a week. For 40 hours a week is what we were doing during the pandemic. And it just supercharged our community in a time where everyone else's communities are kind of falling apart from not being able to hang out with each other. So it's really, really amazing thing that happened. And that was also just an organic thing that happened and we just kind of ran with it.
I love that, and more so because me coming from the digital world these last 20 years, and be like, no, you got to do this thing online where you build community, and people are like, yeah, no, we'll get there. And then last year happened, and people were like, I think we need to get online and like build community. I'm like, yes, yes,
for sure.
It was really cool that you guys did that, especially with Twitch. I love Twitch as a platform because it diversifies and allows for a more expansive reach and a community that can go far beyond the in-person experience, it'll never take away from an in-person experience, but the two can drive each other even more so now that, events are coming back. And so I think it was a great pivot on your part to be able to do that. And the fifth largest, congratulations. That's huge.
Thank you. Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, if you're comparing Twitch to the other social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, there's only so much interaction that you can have with people over either DM or answering comments.
Right.
And it's a very artist to fan experience, right? But there's almost no interaction between fans or community. And Twitch just gave this chat room of, it's just an expansive, very user-friendly, very intuitive chat that just got everyone hanging out with each other. So everyone became friends with each other. Man, I can't tell you, now that shows are coming back, the amount of people that have come up to me and just told me that our channel got them through the pandemic. They made really good friends that they met through the chat room that they now hang out with, and they fly across the country to hang out with. And it's just so cool. I'm so proud of that entire project, and still going. I streamed last night.
That's incredible. Yeah, Twitch and Discord for me. I love the ability to, like, even inside of like a Discord, you can get in there, right, and you can just start doing video chats with everybody all right inside of there, or like everybody can just jump on the audio, like, are we all talking right now? But within its own community, so not like Clubhouse or anything like that. But yeah, and Twitch is wild. Like, it's such high interaction touch points. So I feel like it's the next evolutionary step with digital and social, for probably before we just go straight blockchain, like like creator to consumer, and like, hey, here's our entire metaverse that we all have together.
Let's do it. I can't wait for that.
Right. I'd love to talk about your experience with psychedelics. I mean, earlier, you were bringing up ecstasy, and then, with psychedelics, obviously it's a realm that I think, well, now it's becoming more of a normal topic to talk about. Mushrooms, ayahuasca, plant medicine style, whatever direction you want to go in that, whatever you feel comfortable talking about, but how that has led to some of your experiences, or, and which will also lead us really into like mental wellness and health as well. And I'd love to talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. I think that psychedelics and hallucinogens, and they've completely changed my life. I think that I've had some of my deepest learning experiences while under the influence. And for me, I've told this story a bunch of times, but it's my origin story, really. And it's the first time that I smoked DMT. And I was in my parents' backyard. My parents have this is right before we started Desert Hearts. My parents have this insane jungle that my dad literally planted every tree back there. And my parents have lived there for 30 years. And it's like the entire house that I grew up in. Never had any appreciation for these trees before. I just knew it as yard work. And the first time that I smoked DMT, my brother gave it to me in our backyard. My parents were like asleep upstairs. And 2 minutes into the trip, I open my eyes and I look up, and every single leaf on every branch, on every tree, every single living thing in my backyard is alive with these huge shit-eating grins on their face, just going, yes, 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 yes. And I'm just, what the fuck? And I'm watching fractal patterns of colors and shapes and things I've never seen before shooting back and forth between all the trees. And I can understand that they're communicating and they're talking about me, and they're saying, how amazing is this that he finally understands that we're just as alive as he is. And I'm already just completely flabbergasted. And at the time I was throwing this party called Jungle, and I would literally cut down the branches and the foliage in the backyard to decorate the club with. And so at this moment, I'm just kind of freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for cutting you guys down for my jungle party. And they go, no, dude, don't you understand that what you're using us for is to create a positive impact in the world, in your community? You can use us anytime that you want. And for me, it was just like the atom bomb going off in my head of, I was just given the secret of life by the plants and the trees in my backyard that I grew up with my whole life, that I never knew were alive. And the way of the universe is to spread a positive message and to spread love and positivity. And after that, that became just my life's purpose. That it became everything to me. And we started Desert Hearts with that mission statement 2 months later. And just everything in my life has come into my life, and because of that mission that I'm on now. And that's a big one, you know.
it's a very big one. I have several friends that have gone on to become, successful companies, having very similar experiences. Everything was revealed, and they had it all completely. It was matrix mapped out to down to a science. Like, oh my god, like I see it all completely. Everybody that's listening, by the way, DMT, dimethyltryptamine, if I can say that right, dimethyltryptamine, DMT. It's found in plants. Sometimes it's associated with ayahuasca, and it comes straight from plants. You can smoke it. You could. There's a way that people use it within ayahuasca, and how they do it with the nose as well, having it pushed right up to their nose.
It's basically the rocket ship for
Yes.
psychedelics. It's I think it's the most potent psychedelic, and it's only a 5 to 10 minute trip.
Yep.
So it's they call it the blast off, and you blast off, and you can go into other dimensions. Most people, when they go all the way, they encounter some kind of beings. It's wild, and I was pretty atheist going into that, and then after that, I was like, I know nothing. I'm open to everything now.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's also a little bit of a death to the ego too. So, which is why, when you were like, oh, I'm feeling so bad, I'm doing this, and the trees were like, no, you don't get it. Like, you're using us for something good. It's like the ego almost doesn't even exist for those 5 to 10 minutes, because the ego is kind of what blocks us and causes resistance in a lot of ways to all these things that we think are impossible. And then when other people talk about them, we're like, that'll never work. That's not true. That's not this. Like, well, what is? And this just completely just takes out the ego from approaching things and being like, that which I do not know, which is probably everything. So then what can I learn, which is everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Now my new MO is basically, I'm open to everything, and whatever sticks and resonates with me is what I keep. And I'm just down to try everything, and whatever works for me.
Well, interestingly too, it brings open that kind of critical thinking of what are all the angles I don't see here? And what are all the things I don't know about whatever isn't presented in front of me? And how do I better understand what that means in relation to me, and me in relation to everything? So it allows, you're like you said, you'll be open to many things. It's like, what sticks with me, both whether life or a choice or a person or whatever, and what doesn't. It allows for a lot more freedom. And, because we're actually having a relationship with ourselves. So very interesting, because psychedelics, especially, there's a lot of talk with mushrooms and whatnot, relating to mental wellness and health. And, I was telling you before we got on the show that, there's even the Johns Hopkins studies where, they talk about the entire journey of the intention of doing it. What is the area within the body that you want to get to know or understand? Where are the blockages that are actually happening? And they're administering this even on war veterans, PTSD, people with PTSD, all these things, because they're able to unlock blockages and resistances that are sometimes caused by the cell memory inside of us. And we don't even realize it's happening, right?
Yeah. I've been experimenting lately with microdosing mushrooms and doing the Paul Stamets protocol, which is you take like it's like 0.1 milligrams of mushrooms, and you take that with 200 milligrams of niacin, which is it's flushing. It makes you flush. And then you take that with, I think it's like 200 to 500 milligrams of lion's mane, and you do that 4 days on, 3 days off for a month, and you start feeling really good. You start feeling really clear. It's supposedly the best protocol, according to Paul Stamets. He's kind of the microdosing mushroom guy, but it's supposed to be one of the best for neuron regeneration and cell growth and just all kinds of good stuff for your mind. And I've definitely dealt with quite a bit of brain fog and memory issues. And so for me, I'm looking at this as a healing journey for me and healing my mind and yeah, sobriety, doing bouts of that. And yeah, it's been pretty amazing journey thus far.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding from a lot of people who they're in the matrix, as I say, but like they don't understand, like, oh, is that like not sobriety? And it's like, no, because especially from plant based, but the microdosing is very, very fascinating from what I've learned for myself. You're right. It's like, for anybody listening, it's not all of a sudden you're like shroomed out. It's literally like a turning on of a switch of like your neurons, and while also cell regeneration is like incredible. But imagine, instead of having coffee as the stimulant to wake you up, which is also very addictive, which I love my coffee, but I still have to work through that a little bit. But yeah, that the microdosing mixed with like lion's mane, which is just for everybody listening, a form of mushroom, things that are really impactful on the brain and the creativity. How do we sometimes get brain fog, right? A lot of like our daily activities, sometimes bad foods that we're not, if we're not eating the right foods, or just pushing ourselves like from the way society does. Well, that's actually counterintuitive to what really actually heals us, right? So then mental wellness, mental health, how's that journey been for you as a creator, as a business owner, as a festival owner, as a musician? How's that been? Like, you can go as far, like, and anything that you've dealt with that, is part of the journey that's made you where you are now, but something that we, it's more natural than we think. And I think these are great conversations to have.
Yeah, I think that, so the first couple of years of running Desert Hearts and being on tour, and I tour with 3 other guys in our crew sometimes, and it was like, we're going to be known as the party crew. We're gonna, like, we want to push it to the limit everywhere we go. And we did that for the first probably 4 years. And we just wanted to, we were like preaching kind of like loving debauchery and responsible debauchery. And I just started kind of, like being hungover on an airplane on barely any hours of sleep is the worst feeling in the world. It is just, it's the worst. I can't recommend it to anyone. And to do that night after night, weekend after weekend, year after year, I was just getting completely run down. And for me, I'm trying to do this for the rest of my life. I want to be DJing forever, as long as I can. And it's just not worth it to be hungover and to be feeling like shit, because then I wouldn't even start feeling normal again until Wednesday, Thursday. And then I'm back on tour on Friday. And I started just kind of, I don't know, for me, the bigger that I become as an artist and I guess more popular, I have this thing where I want to stay as close as I can to my fans and all the people that I meet, but I just, like, I can't remember everyone, and it drives me crazy. And it really is something that I should know better, that that I can't be responsible to remember everyone's name, their face, what they do, but it's just something that I just always strive for. And so, yeah, people will be like, dude, I've hung out with you 5 times. And I'm like, fuck. And that kind of got me just on this path of trying to better my brain and really start taking care of my fitness, my mental fitness, everything, because it's all attached to each other. What I eat, what I put in my body is now becoming more crucial as I get older. And I think, mental health comes and goes in this industry. I think this industry is notorious for eating people alive. And I don't want to be that person. I want to be the strong person who's not only mentally tough, but able to build up my community around me and preach all the things that I'm learning at the same time. I want to be showing everyone. That's always been my thing. I want to show people how to love. I want to show people how to build communities of their own. And now I want to show people how to be healthy and still have a good time. And so, yeah, mental health is always at the forefront for me now.
Interestingly enough, loving your body and leading from that place is radical self-love, which is very much a part of your movement of showing everybody like, hey, you know, if we're here to love, like, let's show how we treat ourselves that way first, you know?
Yeah.
How was that for you? Like, you know, I've been on an 8-year journey and still feel like a child sometimes in it, but I love it, you know, everything from nutrition to, you know, spiritual well-being and studying it and integrating all of it along the way. How has it been, you know, when you made that decision, how quickly did you start noticing all the changes? And when I say, you probably know what I mean, but like, there's a lot that gets removed. There's a lot that comes in. Some people look at you crazy. Some people look at you like, he might be onto something. I'm gonna try it too. So they get beautifully influenced for, you know, doing good and better by themselves. Like, how was that? The transitional moments, right?
So it probably started, I think it started when I was about 4 years ago, and I was right about to turn 30. I'm just feeling super run down, and I just wasn't feeling optimum at all. And I started listening to Aubrey Marcus, who's just kind of he's like an everyman self guru, or, you know, he's just like the man. I love him. And he made this book called Own the Day, Own Your Life. And it's essentially a guidebook to striving for the perfect day of maximum optimization of your time, of your body, of enjoyment. And it just starts with routine in the morning, and just it's this book full of all these little life hacks as to how you can really live an optimum day. And I started doing that. So that got me immediately on the path. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm striving for greatness here. This is something that I shared that book with everyone, and just totally kickstarted my self-help revolution journey, I guess. And then I was doing really well. I was in like the best shape of my life. I was just completely grinding everything in full steam. And then the pandemic hit, and like my life just got canceled for a year. And I had a year full of gigs. And then I remember that week when it was, hey, Mikey, your gig just got canceled this weekend. And then that next day it was like, hey, your next weekend got canceled. Next day it was like, your next month got canceled. And then it was like, oh, your year is canceled 100%. And at the time I was in like the best shape of my life. Everything was just going for me. And then I'm like, there's no way I'm losing this, like losing all this work that I did. And then like a month later, I'm like never getting out of bed. And so coming out of the pandemic, I'm back on the grind. I'm back building momentum, and I just put my album out on June 4th. And at the very beginning of May, I've been going back and forth with my mental health of feeling good, feeling like shit, feeling good, feeling like shit. And then in May, I was like, I needed to stop this pattern. I need to just commit to something. And not only that, but my album For the Love is coming out in a month. And I need to be the most clear I've ever been. I need to be working on my spirituality, my mental health. And that way I can just say when I put it out that I gave it everything that I had. So around that time, I started working with this spiritual teacher and working on my mental health with him as far as just like routine stuff that I need to be doing, but then also just learning as much as I can about myself and becoming super clear on where I want to go with this album. What's the message that I want to portray with it? And for me, I've now changed my goal on what I want to be as a DJ, festival producer, all that. Before, I wanted to be the biggest DJ, Jamie Jones level, like selling out every show and just traveling the world, doing the thing. And then now my goal has changed from that to how can I be the most effective healer with my music, with my vibe, with the energy that I put out into the world. And since I've changed that goal, and that's now what I meditate on in the morning, I'm just getting all the love, all the feedback, all the omens are just hitting me one after the other. Like, you're on the right path. This is the right thing for you to do. And oh, by the way, my shows started selling out. All the shows I've played so far have sold out, just because people resonate far more with authenticity and a message of doing the right thing and pushing that love and sharing that with people. And so that's now my goal. I go to shows, and before I play, I meditate on how can I be the most effective healer. And it's the shit. I love it. And I channel all the energy. Yes. I push it out into the crowd as hard as I can. And then afterward, I'm just there to hug everyone and just feel their love and share it together. And that's what I want to be doing now.
So incredible. Anytime we detach from this, I have to have this big, massive persona and do all this and, do this and do that and whatever the attachment is into doing that. Once we detach from that, I've noticed, and we're not so concerned about that as much as how am I showing up as my highest and best self in this exact moment and serving from my purpose and most importantly from my heart.
Yeah,
boom.
It's unreal. It's unreal. And so I've got the opportunity. I had the opportunity to play New York and Chicago on their opening weekends when the mask mandates were lifted, I think on that Thursday before that weekend. And when I went to New York, I had this completely on my mind, how to be the most effective healer. And as I get on my flight attendant stops me and she's just like, oh, Mikey Lion, disruptors. and I'm like, hey, what's going on? She's just like, oh my God. And then I go sit down and I'm just already feeling really good going to this gig in New York. And then she comes by and she drops me off this little note right here. And it just says, Mikey, this last year has been tough for all of us. But one thing that has been a guiding light is yours and the whole Desert Hearts community. Thank you for choosing this. Thank you for choosing Delta and for continuing to spread positivity and healing vibes at your shows. I can't wait to be dancing in Williamsburg tomorrow with you. Cat, your New York flight attendant.
Incredible.
And I was just like, oh, like it made me tear up on the flight, It's like, yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about with the omens and just getting these positive reinforcements and validations to just tell me that I'm doing the right thing and I'm on the right path and just keep going in that direction. And yeah, it's ever since I've done this, it's all I'm getting.
It's an energy. People feel seen, felt, and heard. And when you lead from that place, they feel it. They feel it through the art. It's always interesting to me when people are like, how are you in my head? And I think we were talking a little bit about this. It's like, well, we're not different. We're not so different. I'm a soul having human experience. We're all going through it. And but here's how, here's what I channeled, and let me write it out to the world. And it's so, and it's interesting because sometimes we talk and we're like, is this thing on? And we know when the people tell us back, like, hey, you have no idea. And I'm like, tell me, I don't know, And when you see how far positivity travels, like how far the heart actually travels and people feeling seen, felt, and heard, the impact is massive. And I think sometimes it's a beautiful responsibility that until we're really ready to step into that and do it and feel it and have a good time with it and detach from all that other stuff, we really like the journey really even just begins and starts taking it. It's a life form of itself,
Yeah. Feeling seen, felt, and heard is one of our biggest, it's one of our biggest necessities as human beings. Yes. And I don't think most people don't even realize it. Most people they don't even understand that concept.
Right.
And so they could be feeling beat down, run down at their job, with their family, with their relationships, with their friends. And if you don't feel that way and you don't know that that's something that you need to feel, it's hard to like reach out and express that. So that's why that's everything right now. I'm trying to give that to everyone. And when I go to shows, when I'm on Twitch, I'm always talking to the chat and just shouting out everyone's names, trying to remember that. And that goes back to me trying to remember people's names, because I want to give that to them so badly. Yeah, it's paramount. I love it, and something that I want to do for everyone.
Yeah, and a beautiful responsibility when you have that level of influence, right? It's something that I've learned as well. But because even you see a lot of people with influence who are still very much attached to this kind of physical material world, I'm like, oh, you too just want to be seen, felt, and heard. Maybe I haven't really dealt with the traumas yet, so it's kind of coming out more like, yo, look what I got, look at this. I'm like, I think you just want to be seen, felt, and heard. We can have a convo about that if you want. When you're, not talking to 50 million people online. The commonalities, I think everybody wants to really, truly be understood and be released of having to prove themselves, having to validate, having to need permission or acceptance or accolades or anything, and just to really, self-govern and lead from their heart and do what just most resonates with them. And if we can help give them a little bit more permission to have no permission to do it, perfect,
Yeah.
So that's incredible. So with the album, by the way, I know you can't just pick a favorite track, but if you had to, what do you think? Is there one that stands out? I know they're all good and I've been listening to it, but are there, is there one or two in there for you that has something a little extra added to it that means something to you, of course?
There's a couple on there. The first one, Above the Clouds, is definitely one that really resonated with me, and one that I just really wanted to make a more musical piece for the album, and that's what came out, and I'm really proud of that one. The last track on the album is called Talking to the Trees, and it's about that experience that I had. And then there's another one that I made with Justin Martin called Through the Fog, and that one's it's kind of like an up and down, dark to light track, and it goes back and forth between the darkness and the light, and that's just kind of an example of my mental struggle, right? Of just going in and out of the fog and ultimately overcoming it. So those are ones that really, really stand out to me, that means something to me. And then there's a song called Spot Freak on there. That's just like my house track that I'm just so stoked on. Cause yeah, back in the day, I used to be, when we were dancing at festivals and clubs, my favorite thing ever was when I would hit that pinnacle moment of the night, I would always just go, spot freak. And I didn't know what it meant or anything, but it just meant that like I was the sole controller of my realm, and that peak moment on psychedelics. And yeah, that's the spot freak. So that one I like a lot too.
Incredible. When you're talking about like from the ups and downs and the dark versus the light, like when you've had those moments, or even moments of resistance, or even like when you said, you know what, the album's a month away, what do you do? What do you do when you're having those moments to like, you know what, I need to move, I need to make something happen, I need to get out of this, whatever that resistance is? What have been some really effective tools? Because I know a lot of people are listening, and I know a lot of creatives that are like, it happens to me all the time, and I have some go-tos. I have something. It's funny how the basics usually ground me right back into like flow, and I'm like, why do I ever get out of the basics? So, but what are some things that you do?
When I really find myself going through hard times mentally, I start looking at things like, am I doing my routine? Am I exercising? Am I taking care of what I eat? And oftentimes I'm not. And my routine is massive to me. And if I can start my day with a super productive 3 hours of, like, I get up in the morning, I brush my teeth, I drink water, make my bed, clean the house, meditate. Then I do some like memory games. Then I go for a surf, and then smoothie, and then I'm starting the day. And after that, I'm like, okay, if I can knock this out back to back to back and not do it in a lazy way, then I'm going to be chilling. Like my day is going to rock. And that's something that I learned from Own the Day, Own Your Life. And then the other thing for me is also, I noticed that in times of darkness and when I'm just in a negative headspace, I look at my relationship to love and the mission that I'm on. And oftentimes I find that I'm straying from that mission, and I'm getting hung up on the wrong things. And when I start to realign myself, then my mental health starts coming back, and I start getting motivated. I start wanting to express myself, and yeah, it always comes back when I do that.
I think the distractions are such a beautiful signal. I know it when I get distracted. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I'm not mad at you, or I'm mad at that. I'm like, it's because I know I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now, which, by the way, isn't this. And so it's not your fault, but it is. It's like, it's my fault. And so distractions they're such beautiful signals of like, you're only upset because you're straying from your mission slightly. It's okay, because you can always jump right back onto that parallel, but you have to, take note and be responsible. And then the morning routines are everything. It's so true about the morning. And again, by you having that self-love is the pinnacle of the movement, that we're here to do and spread, especially for the love and within your community. We have to do those things. But yeah, oh man, if I miss meditation, gratitude, intention journaling, the prayer time, I need my prayer time, like movement and mobility, right? The smoothie, it's like from about 5:30 till about 8:30. I need this 3 hour block. nobody is allowed to like contact me unless it's like they're doing the same things. They're part of,
Yeah.
I need that time. And you're right. If you can execute it without not lazily, but like intentionally, oh, forget it.
Hmm.
Forget it. I can
Yeah.
make decisions. I'm clear. I'm running and gunning. Like the world may have just started, but now I'm moving. It's a game changer,
Yeah. Oh man, right now, so me and my wife got a puppy last week, and it's just like wreaking havoc on my routine, and it's waking up multiple times in the night, and I'm just, yeah, I'm really trying to make that effort to like figure out how to keep this all intact while also managing another life in the house.
Isn't that though so analogous to life? Like we get something down and now we're at a new level, a new level of Super Mario. Like all of a sudden
Love
it's
it
like
for
all of a sudden it's like,
sure.
hey, you've mastered this level, but guess what? Here's the beginning of the next level. And it's gonna require you to like not only battle everything else you've already seen up until this point, but so here's some new challenges thrown in and right?
100%.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. We literally got our puppy 3 days after my album came out. It's like one of those things, it's like, all right, this phase complete.
Right.
Obviously there's a lot more albums work that has to go in post, but like that thing is out. Let's start the family. And this is now we've got our training wheels
Yeah.
for when we try later on for our kids.
Yeah, and one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the last couple of years, and it has its moments, is grace. Showing ourselves grace. We're like, so if I don't wake up at 5:30, let's say it's 6:30 because I need the sleep. All right, let's not get hard on myself. We're in the process of what the morning would be. Would I be doing at that point? Let me just jump in there, and that's why hopefully I have that 3-hour buffer.
Yeah,
But
totally.
that showing grace when we fall off of our routines, and it happens. It happens, especially because the routines get the outcomes that we wanted all of a sudden that get us busier, and then we get busier, and it's like, hold up, don't pull me out of my routines. But you did just pull me out of my routines. Like, Matt, you need to get your shit together. So,
Totally.
and it's just having that grace and, but that's how we get better. Like, there's that famous quote, it doesn't get easier, we just get better. Which
right.
Weirdly enough does start to feel after a while like it gets easier-ish, but, we just get better.
I feel like I'm leveling up right now. I feel that things are going in the right direction for me, and really excited to just keep it going and welcome more things in as it comes.
Yeah, I mean, your clarity seems through the roof and very intentional, man. I mean, so it's and when you're really that in tune with the mind and the body and the soul, stay there, stay there. To that point, what do you have coming up?
Well, yeah, touring's really kicking back off. Going to be busy for the next couple of months, and we're working on a City Hearts Festival. That'll be in the fall. Desert Hearts Festival in the next spring. Something that I've really been resonating with, and just been talking about it a lot with my friends and on social media and whatnot, is that we're experiencing this hyper spring that's happening right now, where normally in the winter we have all this pent up energy that gets released in the spring, as does the flow of nature. And right when we were supposed to come out of winter into spring last year, was like, psych, have another winter, have a year-long winter. And I think all of our energy got so built up everywhere, and now we're going into the hyper spring, and we're experiencing it right now. Everywhere we go out, people seem happier. And to me, I want to be hitting this and be with the flow of this hyper spring more than anything right now. So that's where my head's at. It's why I wanted to get clear. It's why I wanted to just do the work. And now it's all happening. I'm stoked.
It's incredible. A hyper swing that'll probably last a good 12, 24 months at this point.
So good. The parties right now are so good.
Yeah. Oh,
people are just
energy, like you said.
Losing it.
You
Mm-hmm.
know? Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I mean, you can imagine they sat with themselves. Hopefully, did some really good, self-reflection time. They're re-emerging and like, okay, I know some things. And
Yeah.
I want to celebrate life even more so. So it's incredible.
Yeah.
Where can everybody find you online? Find you. Find Desert Hearts. Learn more. Find out about upcoming festivals, the album.
You can find all my dates, all my music at MikeyLion.com, and then on social media at Mikey Lion. And yeah, it's MikeyLion. And yeah, thank you again for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, incredible, man. I really look forward to expanding on the friendship and sharing the journey. God knows there's
Absolutely.
lot of time.
You're in LA?
Every so many months, I'm gonna be back in August.
Okay.
I'm actually based in Scottsdale, Arizona. So
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool.
yeah, and stick around for 1 second. I'll close the show,
Cool.
and then. But I just for everybody listening too, incredible by the way. MikeyLion.com, MikeyLion.com. Mikey Lion on Instagram, Desert Hearts. I know I'm not saying anything new to all of you who listen, but everybody at this point is aware of Desert Hearts. But definitely support. Go be a part of the Twitch communities. Go be a part of the festivals. Reach out to Mikey. Some of these things that we talked about, it may not necessarily be about the music. It may be like, hey, I'm having a moment. What do you recommend? I always say, ask. We're here to ask.
100%.
I've had some very interesting people online that God bless them. And of course, I never say who they are, but some wildly known, and I always appreciate the vulnerability. Like, hey, I think things may not be all right. I'm like, let's have it. Let's jam out. And I think that in this beautiful interconnected world, reach out. It makes a difference. And so appreciate you, brother, for coming on the show. Look forward to connecting some more. And then For the Love, it's already out. It's on Apple, Spotify, everywhere. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So be sure to go check, support, stream. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to Mikey. And, for our community, we're so grateful for everybody contributing, to the show, for the contribution of music culture. We want to thank everybody for the feedback. Please continue to give 5-star feedback. Apple loves it for the exposure to the rest of the world. We're still at that mercy, but we always appreciate it. And you can also, again, follow us on all major platforms at We Are Orlove, and at myself, Matt Gottesman, MattGottesman. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel on Orlove. You guys might be listening to this right now on Apple or Spotify or 20 other platforms, Google, iHeart, everywhere. But if you're listening to this and you want to watch the video, you can go to our YouTube channel. Please go subscribe there. You can comment there as well too. We're very community driven, happy to answer questions. And we truly, truly appreciate each and every one of you guys, and we're out.